Hello and welcome to the Ars Electronica Center. Welcome again to Ars Electronica Home Delivery, a program that we started about 2 months ago to keep our content available also throughout the Corona lockdowns. And the concert series where piano music meets digital images is one of the highlights of this program. And this evening, number 8 in the series of these concerts, is dedicated to New York, actually to 3 composers from New York, John Cage, Laurie Anderson, and Elliot Goldenthal. And it's not only New York that connects these artists, but also their very long and vivid relationship with our 2 guest musicians. Maki Namekawa and Davies are again here to perform this evening exciting piano music from the 20th and 21st century. And I was talking about the very long relationships. This is actually a very beautiful and nice photo from the very young conductor Davies with the master and titan of avant-garde music, John Cage, and they became very good friends and worked a lot together. So we are very happy that you are going to perform his pieces. We will start with The Seasons, music that John Cage composed for Merce Cunningham, the choreographer, and his dance company. And then we will continue with the Suite for toy piano, which he composed in 1948, only 1 year after The Seasons, again for Merce Cunningham. So both are actually music for ballet, and we will hear a little bit more about this music from Davies later. We will continue with a new piece for piano by Laurie Anderson, who will then be our guest in the live talk with Zoom. Before we move on to Elliot Goldenthal, give you the chance to ask questions to the artists and close the evening with another piece by John Cage. But I think now, with any further ado, let's start with the music, and I would like to ask Davies to start with The Seasons.
then winter, a second prelude, and then spring. Logically, the rest of the year is also there with a prelude, fall, which is the time of destruction, and summer, of course. This work I had conducted many times before I was really aware that the piano version was the original one. Margaret Lang Tang has done a beautiful foreword in her publication of these beautiful piano works by John Cage. And I was astonished when I began practicing and learning the piece for the piano version, how wonderfully it's written for the piano. John must have been a very, very skillful pianist, and he had a wonderful pianist, David Tudor, also to work with during those years. But he then orchestrated the piece so that Merce could use it also with instruments and with a small orchestra. And it's wonderful that the orchestration, which he did quite skillfully, it was his first real orchestra piece. He was helped by Lou Harrison, his dear friend, and later my dear friend, and Virgil Thompson. The two of them worked with Lou together on this score, so that we then have two versions of this wonderful work. And I highly recommend to the pianists this wonderful collection of works by Cage in the Peters edition that Margaret Lang Tang put together. Margaret and I were also students together. When we were 18, we traveled to Washington together on the train, both of us taking part in an international Johann Sebastian Bach competition. She did better than I did, but we went home early, both of us. But she's a wonderful pianist too, and has done a great deal for John's music.
So thank you very much for this exciting performance on these very different instruments. I think for all of us it's still a great experience to see the toy piano standing just right beside our big Bösendorfer Zeus with all the wonderful computer technology in it. So I think Laurie Anderson, the composer of the last piece, is already online, and now we are going to play the highlight of our concerts, the Can You Hear Me performance.
Yes,
so right. Let's see if this time it works. Can you hear us?
Laurie, are you there?
Hear you.
Oh, we can hear.
Wow. And I could hear the beautiful version that you just played, Dennis. It was really, but thank you so much. It was beautiful.
Laurie, could you just say something about Bob and about what the title means, Song for Bob?
Song for Bob, yeah. You know, I'm basically a violinist, and I always envied composers who are sitting at the piano with all these photographs of people like their mother and their uncle and I don't know, Brahms, whoever they love, all sitting on the piano, and they play to those people. You know, I thought, what a lovely thing to write some songs for your friends. So this is a song that I wrote. And actually, they asked me to write it. So I'm saying this like it's my idea, but it was always my fantasy to do it. Anyway, I got the opportunity to write something for Bob Hurwitz, who was for many years the head of Nonsuch Records, and such a wonderful person who really loves music. And it was a present for him that a lot of people who were musicians who are on Nonsuch were giving him a present for his going away party, for his retirement thing. So we all wrote songs for him, and it's on a record called I Still Play, which is, that's what, of course, people ask you when do you still play? Or they ask me like, do you still do concerts? So anyway, it's for Bob Hurwitz. And it was great fun to write. And I really, I'm not a keyboard player really, so I like to use a lot of electronic filters. And so this was a piano thing that I like to just play around with the different delays and things like that. So, but Dennis, when you just played those, of course, those delays are there, but you made them so, human and natural. My versions were like, there's more mechanical. So thank you so much for your interpretation.
You said at the beginning of the part that with a sense of improvisation. So I took it literally. And
good. Yeah.
So
yes.
I thought, I had an experience like that. I went back to Toledo for my high school reunion from a graduation. That was in 2012 was my 50th anniversary high school graduation. And one of the fellows I knew in school saw me and came up to me and said, "Hey, Denny, do you still play the piano?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm still doing it." And he seemed happy with that, so it was a nice thing. Yeah.
I know. Well, I get that too. Like, you're still alive?
Yeah.
Wow. That's the next one. But yeah.
Well, as I said, Laurie, I hope there are more of these out there. Are there more of these pieces, or we're going to have to look for some, because I enjoyed working on this very much, and I wish there were more. I wish it were. Yeah. Okay. Let's look for it.
Yeah. Okay. That'd be great.
Where are you?
I love these concerts, by the way. I've been tuning in from New York, and it's just great to be in that beautiful space for a moment. I'm so glad you're doing this.
Maki played the piece for toy piano, and you knew Lou Harrison very well. Lou orchestrated the suite for toy piano, and it is really wonderful because Lou orchestrated it for a symphony orchestra of about 110 people. the Suite for Toy Piano, that music that we heard for 110 musicians. And I conducted, it was wonderful, and I conducted it at a concert in Carnegie Hall with the American Composers Orchestra, and got, for that concert, the most absurd review I've ever received for a concert. The critic, well, he thought that it didn't sound very much like a toy piano. Can you imagine? It was wonderful. I loved it.
Expert on how toy pianos should sound. Okay.
I loved it.
Hey, I can't imagine it like is everyone sitting on the floor playing these, or where do they sit?
Well,
Yeah, I have a chair.
did you see Maki? She has this little bench about.
Because the camera's facing just the piano, so I didn't see it.
No, I think maybe. Do you see me now? Over there? Can you? Well, but she'll
I
go
see
over.
you, but not over there.
Okay.
They're
okay.
using another camera for that.
All right, there's another camera. Anyhow, there's a little red. She's got this little red instrument, and there's a little. Here it is.
Yeah.
She sits on this.
Oh, sweet.
And,
That's fantastic.
and in our studio at home, the toy piano and the bench are under the piano, so we can pull it out whenever we.
Yeah, that's very nice. Stowaway piano. That's good. Yeah, pianos take up a lot of space.
What are you working on?
Today, I'm working on some radio shows. And because and I'm doing them, I was kind of an artist in residence at a Wesleyan, which is a college in Connecticut. And when COVID hit, all of the students just go away. And so I said, okay, I'll what works now? What works? Radio works. So I'm doing some, it's just talking with people and then playing music. And it's called Party in the Bardo. And I'll send you a streaming link for it. It's on at 4 a.m. And you can also stream it at a more reasonable time. But I love 4 a.m. because I always wanted to have a radio show, live in San Francisco, have a radio show at 4 a.m., before people got up and before drive time radio. Because this time of day, 4 a.m., your logic is breaking down. You're very open to the world in a different way. You're not like saying this or that, you're just you're half dreaming. And so it's for the half dreamers that this is for. And so it goes around a lot of different topics. And to this one that's going to come out tonight is about slowness in music and how to get super slow. And there's one thing about, one story about I love slow music. And this was a dancer named Mary Overly asked me once, she said, could you write, I have a dance that is very slow, but I need something really slow, some music. So can you write that for me? So I said, yeah, try it. So I made something that was so slow. I mean, if you were going to, Dennis, conduct this piece, your hand would be coming up. You're not even a quarter of the way up to the upbeat to come down to the downbeat. You're just like, you're still coming up. You're not even coming down. So I played this for her and she listened and she said, yeah, I like it, but it's just way too fast. I was like, okay, now I'm getting it. I'm getting it slowly. So some of the things that happen too when you're working electronically, of course, talking to people who are, it's the capital of electronic music as well as classical music where you are, but then I like that way to get slow. There's a composer named William Basinski, who's one of my favorite composers and he made something called disintegration loops. And these were pieces that he made that when he was trying to digitize his archive, he got a lot of shedding of tape, and it's sort of disintegrating. And he thought, this disintegration is really beautiful, and things fall apart, and you get all of these strange holes in the sound and patterns. Not even patterns, but they're just, like the whole thing becomes a weird lace, and you look through it and into the music and out of it. So that is maybe a 4-hour piece. That's a really interesting one.
Laurie, I have a serious
What are you
question.
going to play next?
Next, I am not playing. Maki is going to play
Oh, great.
a beautiful piece by Elliot Goldenthal. But I wanted to ask you: Are you live at 4 in the morning?
Am I alive or am I live?
Are you doing the program live?
Actually, we record it very late at night, but it's on at 4 because we have to do a little post-production, a little fixing up. It's not perfect.
Send me the link, because 4 in the morning there is 10 in the morning here. So I'll be ready for it. I'm up.
Right. Yeah. You might not be in the same sleepy vibe. You're like, when are they ever gonna say anything?
And I'm supposed to give you a lot of love and many greetings from the Philharmonie Brno as well. I was there this week.
Thank you so much.
I was there this week.
Yeah.
We started rehearsing again. We had 2 concerts, recordings with a large orchestra. So life is going on in many parts of the world. So
I am so happy, and I'm so happy you're doing this. It really makes me happy because, we're still stuck in our houses here. We don't go out. So I'm very happy to see music coming back. It's live music.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great concert.
Very much.
Now I'm going back and tune in.
And
Okay, goodbye. Bye.
now something completely not slow. The next is the Chic Diabolique by Elliot Goldenthal. And please, Maki, tell us about the piece that you're going to play.
Yeah, Elliot Goldenthal, I met him when he came to the Ars Electronica Festival 2015, the first time. And Bruckner Orchestra, Linz, and Davies conducted, and then his piece, Symphony G sharp minor. That was excellent piece, and I was so happy to listen. And he told me his family, actually, Elliot was born in Brooklyn, and then he lives still in New York. He's a New Yorker, but the pair of his grandparents came from Bucharest, from Romania. And when I listen his music, or when I play his music, I feel always a kind of the primal power or nature power. This is so beautiful and strong, and in his blood, I feel that. I'm going to play Gigue Diabolique, Diabolique in French, and then this is actually world premiere for a piano version. Have fun.
So definitely not slow at all. It's like a racing car, actually. And I think it's really interesting because Elliot Goldenthal is basically a world-famous composer. Also, many people probably don't know when they hear his music. He has composed the music for many of the big blockbuster movies. But as we could hear, he is also a very, very serious composer. And it's great to have another piece of him here in the programs of Ars Electronica.
He studied by Aaron Copland, right? And John Coriano and
he assisted Aaron personally. He had a lot of very, very close and interesting experiences. And Aaron, during the time that Elliot was there, Aaron would take his scores and would go through them with him. He took a great deal of pleasure, first for himself, to revisit his own music. And he was teaching Elliot composition by taking him through his own scores. It was very touching. And I love this because, for years I was at the Cabrillo Festival in California, a wonderful festival which is still having wonderful successes and concerts. And the composers, Lou Harrison, Virgil Thompson, John Cage, Aaron Copland, they were all there. They came regularly and were part of the summer fabric and part of my summer fabric.
Yeah, so and you were there too.
And I was there, and I was, and I was so touched to talk with Elliot when he told us these experiences of being with Aaron and what he learned from him. Yeah, it's wonderful.
And on the other hand, he is Academy Prize for the best movie, and Frida and Batman.
Really great, yeah. I think this is something I always admire so much about your work, Dennis, is looking at all your history, how many of the contemporary composers you helped to get their pieces performed at very early times already, and I think you really did so much for getting contemporary music also into the programs of concert halls.
I was very lucky when I began my career as a conductor that I had such great composers who were giving me an opportunity to help them. Berio and Henze from the European side, and Pierre Boulez, Bruno Maderna, but then John and John Cage and Aaron Copland and Lou Harrison especially, and Virgil Thompson. Virgil called me Puss. He's the only. Yeah, we don't want to go any further with that. It's the only person who ever did that, but he was allowed. Virgil could do what he liked.
Okay, great. So now it's time for comments, questions, greetings from our online audience, and I think we do have some people who listen in every week, because we get greetings again from New York, Chile, Edinburgh, and Albania. I remember these countries from the last concerts. And there is already a question to Maki, that tiny piano is really cool. Can you give us some more info about it? What was played on that kind of instrument? Is there a lot of works for toy piano, actually?
There's many works, right? And then I played once in Basel. That was a correction by Mojo Kagel. Also, and then John Cage.
Well, I can recommend, I mentioned Margaret Lang Tan. She has an enormous repertoire for this particular instrument and has done a great deal to present it to the public. And of course, the combination of that music with, so I would just, to find more music, just find Margaret's recording. She's recorded a lot of things.
And the inside is no strings.
Yeah, so like how is it made? Please maybe
like a glockenspiel, can I say? So this is
metal
heavier than you think, actually. And then I need for the transport, some support.
Okay, we got a lot of positive feedback also from Facebook. Spielerisch mit der Grafik zusammen, so very playful. The combination of toy piano and the graphics makes a very good feeling. Cool concert and visuals.
Cool is good.
Very, very nice. And there is a question again to Maki. What's the story behind Goldenthal's Chic Diabolique?
This is, you know, the jig is the dance, and in his music there's many dances, and somebody, and in Switzerland the recording producer called him Waltzkönig. It is a Waltz King. Yeah. His music is very often for the piano is dance music, but this jig is in a devil. This is Teufel, devil. Yeah. And yeah, he composed this. He didn't compose for piano solo, and then there's another version for piano trio and for the orchestra, small orchestra, and I made from my own this.
This is her version.
Yeah.
Version.
I think that's very important to hear.
Yes.
And
this is, I told, like Romanian blood is inside something.
I particularly love these two parts where you have to target the very high notes and they're really exploding in moments.
Like visuals goes up like this.
And she really did play the right notes, and she did. You know, there's a wonderful story about the pianist Vladimir Pachman. I told you that Pachman, when he toured the U.S. back in the 19th century, he would tune the 6 or 7 notes on top to the same note, so that when he crossed over, whatever he hit was the right note. But she doesn't have to do that. She's
Bravo, Pachman.
Bravo, Pachman.
Really great experience. I don't know if we have more questions online. Yes, okay, I see the screen again. Renate ist auch wieder dabei und freut sich riesig. So Renate says she is again listening into our concert and is very, very happy about it. Well, we are very happy to have guests who are coming back. And there are so many questions they can't even follow to type them for us on the screen. It was so nice to follow the previous conversation with the composer. Reminded me of the good times at the National University of Music in Bucharest, when both foreign and Romanian composers would gather at workshops, presentation or talks and share their musical experience and visions. It's always such an intimate, natural atmosphere and interaction with people sincerely passionate. I felt the same here. Wow, that's a very nice comment.
It is. I was with Elliot in Bucharest in 2017 for the International Music Festival, and I conducted the symphony that Maki had mentioned, and he was there, and we were having a chance to interact with the public, and of course Elliot is especially a big star in Romania. They're very proud of what he's achieved over the years. Yeah.
Cool. I see there's another question coming. Again, somebody who is following us for many concerts, from Madeira, Thomas and Brigitte.
Okay, they came in last week, and I have to say something. Yeah. Thomas and Brigitte are very dear friends. Thomas Sell from Stuttgart, they're very dear friends. And you may know, some of you, that I had a project where I was able to perform and record over a long period of time all of the Haydn symphonies. And Thomas was the producer of this project. I'm totally and eternally grateful to him for that opportunity, and I want to just say that publicly. And Thomas, since you're out there listening to it, you've heard it now.
Great, wonderful. I think when I just look at the screen, there are lots of more things are coming, but probably we should move on with our program. You have a final piece prepared for this evening on 2 pianos, but maybe before we start with this, some information on next week's program.
Indeed. We're going to celebrate the 85th birthday of the Austrian composer Kurt Schwerzig. His birthday will actually be the day before, but Maki and I will play together a wonderful suite that he composed, piano 4 hands. It's music, it's theater music for Macbeth, for Shakespeare's Macbeth, which is a really wonderful piece. And then you are playing?
I'm going to play Joop Weving. He's in Holland and a composer, and then I'm going to play 2 pieces by him. Yeah.
Great. And now we are coming back to New York, to John Cage,
Back to New York.
and Experience 1 for 2 pianos.
Right.
Please go ahead.